Here is a few helpful tips when you're replacing your brake pads, your caliper, and your rotors. When you replace the rotors, when you have to take off the old one, you're having a hard time, get the bolt that fits into these holes right here. And as you tighten them in there, it'll push against the hub in the back, it'll pop it off. That's number one. The other thing is, when you take off the old one, use a C-clamp or a vice clamp and squeeze the brake pads together so it can relieve some pressure so you can pull it off. Of course, make sure you open up the reservoir cap on your brake inside the engine compartment. Just leave the cap on, you don't want any contaminants in it. And once you get this loose, you don't have to take this thing out first, the caliper. Take off the bracket, the 2 bolts in the back, and take the whole assembly out at the same time. But before you completely take it off, loosen up the hose bolt. Just crack it open, because once it's solid on here, you have more leverage. If you take this off, it's going to be dangling, it's going to be tough. So break that bolt back there, which is this one here, just enough so you can finish it off later. Then you take the whole assembly, right, and you hang it. You hang it with a hook, relieving pressure here. Then you can do all your changes. Take out the old one, put the new one in. And I suggest when you put this all together, do it before you put it on the vehicle. You know, dry fit everything with the brake pads, because especially if you're using aftermarket, the brake pads, they usually don't fit 100%. You might have to grind the ends of the brake pad, the outer part, just so it slides in easily. You don't want to put them in too tight, because then it won't move freely when you use the brakes. You want it to move back and forth. Sometimes you either grind the brake part, or you can bend some of these tabs. Sometimes these tabs, they cut into the brake and it prevents it from sliding. So you might have to bend it a little bit. If you still have problems with these clips, I would suggest you use the old clips. Put them back on. Make sure you lube everything so it slides nicely. And you put the whole thing, you know, on one step at a time. Bracket, 2 bolts in the back, then the caliper with the brake pads, and you tighten it up to specs. This is a Toyota Rav 4 2003. There might be different torque specs, but I always torque it according to what the specs are. All right, and then once you start bleeding it, before you bleed it, you got to take off the hose, off the old one that's hanging. You can put a clip, you can use one of these guys, a vice grip. You know, get a needle nose would work good. Clamp it onto the hose. Put a rag on it before you clamp it so you don't damage the hose. So you could prevent some of that brake fluid from coming out. You take off that bolt off the old one and slide this back onto the new one. But make sure you put your 2 washers in and out and tighten it up. And whatever you lose, make sure you put some cat litter on the floor so you can catch it. Once that's done, you get your bleeder valve here. You use your one-man bleeder kit if you know how to use it, or you get someone else to help you do that. Once it's all done, wipe up everything, press your brake, make sure everything is tight, put your tire back on, and that should be it. Now remember, these are just things that I've come across and learned as I went along. Use caution whenever you work on your car. If you're not comfortable working with your vehicle, this is a safety concern. If you don't feel safe doing this kind of work, go to a professional and have it done. But these are just little tips I thought might help you before you work on your brakes. Thanks for watching.